So I got the TD8 in the barn today, and injection pump is leaking. I'm thinking it's leaking here and out of the throttle shaft. There's two shafts comes out of this pump. So anyway, my thought today is I'm gonna pull this apart. I've got a seal kit for it. I'm gonna see if I can figure it out. But what I'm gonna do first, there's a timing cover right here on the injection pump. So if you pull this timing cover, I don't know if that's easy to see or not, but you should be able to line up your flywheel indicator and line up the mark here, and you should be on TDC number 1, or you'd be on the timing mark, which I think on this one is 12 or 14 degrees. I can't remember for sure. I'll check on that, but I think it's 12 degrees. Static timing is what they call it. But then I have to pull off this plate. So basically there's going to be there's a 4-bolt plate on the front of the gearbox, or the gear housing on the front of the engine. We got to pull that off. We got to pull the nut off of the pump shaft, and then we're going to have to build a puller, it looks like. I read on a injection website you could actually take a brass drift and tap it and it should come out. It's a tapered hub, but you want to have it in the right position with the key up so the key don't drop down in the oil pan. I guess that can be a problem. Probably would be really bad if the key got between some gears. Might make a mess out of the whole engine. But so fingers crossed we'll get this thing fixed without any major catastrophes. Anyway, that's what I'm up to today. Okay, so I was able to use, sorry for the wind, just use a regular, this is just a universal puller I've got. It seems like it's going to work to pull this off. I got the bolts out. I got the only thing, the book says you can pull the gear before you take this loose, but that kind of makes me a little nervous, I guess. I don't know, but I guess in theory it just pops loose. So I'm gonna try tightening on it. The bolt for my puller is a little too long, wouldn't fit in here, so I'll just use this bolt here and we'll see what happens. But I think the International probably did have a special puller for this, and not exactly easy. I don't know. I mean, injector pump, I learned about them in Votech somewhat. I didn't really get a full training like injector pump school, but we learned the basic stuff like Russamasters. Okay, it popped loose right there, so, and that's all you got to do. You don't want to keep pushing because you're going to be pushing against the pump shaft pretty hard. Basically, it just lets the gear pop off the shaft a little bit. But I learned a little bit about Russamaster pumps. We used to go through those. I've been through several of those, just putting seal kits in them. You can actually set one of those with a set of calipers, or dial calipers. And they are a pretty simple pump. They're a neat design. That's what GM and Ford used on all the old indirect injected motors. A lot of John Deere tractors used them. I really wish this dozer had one, just ease of simplicity. Now this one, we are just about ready to pull this thing off. I'm gonna go ahead and pull the puller out of the gear. I hope I didn't drop the key. It said to leave the key at 11 o'clock, which is, if you got your timing marks lined up, it should be at 11 o'clock. So Another thing I wanted to mention is before you pull these, well, there went that bolt. Before you pull the 3 bolts out of the, and I did this wrong, basically that hub is able to be adjusted to set the timing in the slots so you can adjust it, and then you tighten the bolts down. But what I did is I pulled all 3 bolts out before I tried to take the center nut off. Take the center nut off first, just because if you don't, that hub will spin inside the gear, if that makes sense. So once you get it off and you take those 3 bolts out, that pump has quite a bit of spring pressure that'll try to push it one way or the other. So you kind of got to be careful with that. And I'm sure when I go to put it back in there, that's going to be an issue. But I think there's an Allen screw or an Allen, there's like a hex in the end of the shaft where you can put a Allen wrench or something in there, I believe. So now all I got left to do, I've got all the fuel lines loose. All I've got left to do is the 2 bolts that hold this thing on the tractor or the engine. And I think we're ready to pull her off. So this is my first time into one of these. I don't know what I'm getting into. So these are the bolts that hold not only the head on, they hold the pivot for your throttle, and this thing needs rebuilt. And probably going to pull that apart to get that out of there. But you can see when this gets loose, it doesn't ride in the right position on here, and this is also worn off. So once this starts to slide over to the side, you start losing RPMs. So I may take a torch and some brass rod and just kind of build that up. That's probably not the best way to do that, but I don't always do things the best way. Sometimes I just try to figure out what works. Now, I think if we pull this off, we'll be able to get that out of there. And this shaft is worn. I think, you know, probably the best way to fix this is to put a new piece of cold rolled or rod in there. That might be something harder than cold roll. I don't know what they use on that, but okay. Now what we'll do is we'll leave that nut set right there so we can put it back together, hopefully the same way it came off. One benefit of video on this is I'm gonna hopefully have a reference to, uh-oh, that's where you messed up. Get a torch tray cleaned out here. You know, injector pump work ought to be done in a clean room where there's no dust, where there's no, that's not where I'm working, but this is my pump. I don't have a problem working on my own. I don't work on other people's injection pumps. The leaky parts, this is the parts that are leaking. There's shaft seals on these. Well, this is the tricky part. Probably need to get that spring out of there first. However, it'd be easier if I could let that loose. Yeah, that definitely, I think I messed up there. There is a reference mark. Okay. The problem with that is, you know, these are got teeth, So you could be one tooth off one way or the other. Ooh. Dang it, I should have marked that. Okay, I didn't. So there's her first mistake. Let's move on to mistake number 2. Now I see no reference mark on this one. So what I'm gonna do is, before I blow that one up, I'm gonna get a scribe and we're gonna try to mark that one. I'm gonna actually lay that on the side of that rod right there, and I'm gonna put a scribe mark across that, and that way when I put that back together, should be able to get that right, unless that wipes off. I don't think it will, but that should get me in the ballpark. Let's hope. So these are the seals that are leaky. There we go again. These are going to be tight. Very tight. I'm sure there's a guy that does injection pumps somewhere that's just cringing right now. And for that, I'm sorry, my friend, but the pump might end up in an injection shop before this is over. Who knows? That one didn't come loose. There she did. I think that one came loose either, did it? Don't look like either one of those did. Okay, ooh, yeah, that is gross. Lots of crap back behind there. I think these should come out now. Tell you what we better do. Let's put a screw back in here, I believe. Tighten this down a little bit. Just kind of keep that head in place. I don't know why we're having this issue we're having here. These probably need to come out first. Yeah, I think so. I think these are just set in with a O-ring. Yeah, there it goes. Oh, that's different than okay, so there's a little slotted, so that comes out of there. And let's see here. Let's go ahead and pull this one out too. There we go. This one's the same way. Oh, I dropped a spring out of this side. Ooh, that's not good. Alright, we got something there. And this is your fuel metering rod, I guess, that goes with the bottom. Apparently the spring I dropped in there is not metal. So that's what the fuel shaft, this is probably as far as I should have went right here, but there's our spring. I do believe this spring was in here. Now as far as this, I do believe this was, well, let's see here. That couldn't have went in there. This has to be, would that be right? That don't seem right. Doesn't fit over that. Doesn't fit over that. It came out with doesn't fit in there. This is gonna drive me crazy. It must have went under there. That's where that went. Okay, that has to be where that goes. So there was a shim under the spring under there. We hope. Okay, now carrying on. Like I say, probably should have stopped right there, but we didn't, did we? I think the biggest problem I'm gonna have is trying to line up the bottom throttle shaft, which okay, there's probably the O-rings that leak. Now, I'm gonna assume that maybe some new O-rings will fix this. I did get a seal kit. So we're gonna hope new seals fix mine. This is the bottom one, this is the top one. Let's put those in order. So that actually sits down in there on top of that like that right there. Interesting. Okay. Now we got a bunch of stuff right here. Now this is probably the O-ring It's been leaking diesel, I would guess. Doesn't seem to be any gasket material or shims anywhere on that. So what we have here is the actual fuel plunger, and this is what does the fuel pumping. Installed for sure. You can kind of see, looks like this thing's had a little rust in it, which isn't good. In all honesty, this thing should probably be rebuilt by a professional. Now, what did we lose in here? Now, this is an interesting part. So what is this? This is is that a filter screen? Sure looks like a filter screen. It's kind of weird. And then it's got like a washer. Now that went in, came out just like that right there. So that would go, in theory, that would fit right against. Okay, that's interesting. Next we have a little disc. And this little disc was sitting right in the end of that. Now there's a key that looks like that in there. And it looks like we got a roller out of place down in this cam. I don't know how that happened, but somehow we're out of place there. Ah. Okay, now probably what's going to have to happen next, I'm assuming, is take off this. And I'm sure this is probably the timing mechanism for cold start or between idle and full throttle. This is probably how it adjusts. And how in the heck did that work? This is back before diesel engineers even worried about how to save the planet, because they were already saving it. They were making more efficient engines. Alright, so this plunger, see what that does, it adjusts this ring, and this ring is the cam, and that actually sets your that will adjust your timing. Okay, that's what I was looking for. Word I was looking for. Timing. Oh crap. Alright, so all of that just came apart. No bueno. Did not realize that would come apart like that. Those should probably all go back in the same little spots they were in when they were pulled out. Pretty fancy little parts and bits in there. Goodness sakes, that was stupid. Okay, I'm an idiot. Oh, there's 4. I just can't count today. What the heck? Alright, never mind. I just gotta figure out where them go. That's the tricky part. So we'll pull this other side off here. This is the back side of the pump. This is the front, top. And this is the timing device. Now we got some special shims in here. Looks like there's 2. Okay. I didn't notice if there's any. No, the other side just had a cap on it, so that's a different deal. Okay, so there's that. There's that. I'm gonna put that spring in there. Okay, now there's a plunger here. In the middle of these will come out, but if you look at that plunger, that's what runs the timing. That allows the engine to run at a different time for cold weather versus hot. Now, while I'm into this pump, I'd like to go ahead and change the front seal, because if this starts leaking, it gets diesel in the oil. Diesel in your oil is never good, so I might as well go ahead. I'm into it this far. Might as well keep on moving. Goodness sake, somebody tightened the crap out of that. That did the trick. Okay, we got a screen. Now this is the fuel. I think that's what lets the fuel out of the machine. Well, there's some crud in there. I think that probably happened when I was working on it. Okay, now there's a pin before I started, so this thing was not exactly clean. Boy, one of the worst things about what I did here is losing the timing mark. This is going to be a mess. I can assure you, it's going to be a mess. Okay, I found it, finally. I just got to messing around here. That little clip right there lets this come out of there. Magnet, please. Okay, that little pin right there is what holds this pin in place. To turn it just a little bit to get that back down in there. It's a long pin, comes out like that. Okay, now this comes out. Now that has a piece in there that floats and pivots, so, and want to be sure and remember the side with the spring went to the back side. Side with the port goes to the front. So got that figured out. We got that figured out. Something we probably need to do is take off this timing indicator. where the little notch goes that way. I don't think you can put that on there backwards actually, but who knows, I might. Alright, now this thing's coming apart. Seems to me it would be kind of hard to get this to fall out, which is probably not always the case, I'm sure. So just if we can't pry that out there the other way. Dude's hard to get a hold of. My key getter outer ain't working very good. View of the, this is the pump ring for the, I believe it goes just like that right there. So the thick side would be the right hand side facing the back of the pump. The thin side is, no, left hand side is thick side, right hand side is thin side. So see if we can get that out of there. We might be able to get this thing back together at some point, I hope. This is the pump that gives it fuel pressure. This pump needs to be gravity fed or supplied with a, what you call it, needs to be supplied with pressure. So there ain't a whole lot more in this except for this at least I don't think. And that should come out of there. Okay, I got him out of there. So this is the front. This is the back. This pump is not probably in the greatest of shape, but now I want to pull the seal out of the front. I do believe I got a new seal for it with my kit. So there are a lot of things in life a feller shouldn't do. Guess I should say a man or young man, boy. One of them, rebuild your own injector pumps. Send it to a shop. Don't do this yourself. Do not do this yourself. Stupid to try to do some of this yourself. There's no benefits other than I can say, look guys, I did it myself. There are 2 bushings in this pump in the front. And a seal. So now I need to basically I need to just take this thing and scrub it. I'm going to start cleaning all the parts I got. Disassemble all the seals. Disassemble the throttle shafts. Clean those up. Whew, yeah. Anyway, let's look at this one here. I've got such a mess here. This is just not even funny. Kind of is if it's not your mess, but okay, what do we got? Like a dust, it's just a dust type seal. I think it keeps it, it's supposed to keep the dirt from getting to your seal, but you can see a little wear on the throttle shaft and it's dirty as crap. There's one thing I do not understand on this pump, and maybe somebody can enlighten me on it, but I cannot for the life of me figure out how they are I can't for the life of me figure out how they regulate speed with this setup. I mean, the way it looks to me, you've got a direct throttle linkage connected to this shaft. And you've got some little cuts there. You know, you've got like a slanted cut there and one there, which that would give you more fuel, less fuel. Then you got this one down here, and this one is your fuel shutoff, and it also it's like the only diesel I've ever seen that has like a choke for a cold start. And when you set this thing to choke, it will usually start. It usually starts right up. If it's cold, even if it's cold, it'll fire up. So this really ought to have a bushing in it. This is my throttle linkage. You can see how badly worn that is. I don't know if it'd be better to bush this, but to do that I'm gonna have to drill it and ream it. Next option might be to drill it and ream it, put a bigger size. You can see the wear on that, it's pretty bad. It actually goes this way, but this is our slack, and somebody may have already welded, I don't know if that's factory, I don't know if it's a MIG weld. So that could probably be ground off. I could probably put a new shaft on, but that doesn't fix the problem with the lever. The lever's probably the best way to fix it would be to it needs face too. I mean, you can see how it's just been eating in the washers. Best way to fix it would be to make it a size bigger. Not sure time will allow for that, but it might. Anyway, I got to get all this stuff cleaned up.